Let's talk about distraction as a tool for stress reduction. As you already know, there are many different ways in which you can facilitate stress reduction, and distraction is just one of the many tools that I recommend that you use on a regular basis. Distraction is not intended to be a way of ignoring the stress or the source of stress, but rather it's a tool to help you to get out of that state of stress, to allow you to change that state in order to, well, get some respite from the stress itself, but also in order to allow you to have a fresh mind, a fresh approach, so that once you have had some respite, once you have had some distance from the stress, the stressors, being in the state of stress, then you can more effectively look at and address what is the source of stress, what is the stress, and how can I address it, potentially either reduce it or eliminate it for future events. There are different types of distractions for anything, including stress. And we want to focus on distractions that will be healthy for us because, as you well know, there are plenty of ways to distract yourself that will not be healthy for you. So, for example, drinking or eating to excess is not a healthy distraction, or engaging in some kind of negative behavior, whether it's anger outburst or destruction or partaking in illegal substances, things that are not healthy for you. You all know what is good for you and what is not good for you, for the most part anyway. So things that are destructive, things that will only add to the stress, whether in a short term type of situation or long term into the future. If it's going to add to your stress, it's probably not a good distraction. Another way to rate your distractions for stress reduction is whether the distraction is productive or a time waster. Now, a distraction could be productive, which will benefit you all around because you can get some things done, but it can also be meaningless or non-productive. It could be considered to be a waste of time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that type of distraction is bad for you. If you choose to distract yourself away from stress by doing something like watching some TV, well, if you want to look at it very objectively, many would consider TV to be a waste of time because you're really not getting anything accomplished. However, it's entertainment and there's a time and place for that, and it can help you to unwind and reduce your stress. So, time wasters, or so-called time wasters, can be potentially a good way of distracting yourself. But that's another way of looking at distractions when we're trying to get ourselves out of that state of feeling stressed out, is which kind of distraction will you choose? Will it be one that will be productive in its nature, which is great because you can just accomplish more things that way, and that's always a bonus. That's more things off of your to-do list. Or do you want to choose a time waster or two? And that's okay too, if it accomplishes what it needs to accomplish. A note of caution that if all you ever choose is the time wasters, you may be missing out on the potential opportunity of getting some things accomplished while moving away from being in that state of stress. Something else that I've already alluded to is a consideration of how will your distraction or distractions or your distraction habits affect you in short term and in long term. Here's what I mean by that. If the distractions that you go for in order to get yourself out of that feeling stressed out, that state of stress, benefit you in the short term because they do their job. They get you out of that stressful state. But in the long run, if they bring more stress into your life, then that's not really the right kind of stress reduction technique for you. So that's something to consider. And I get it that maybe you can get away with it once or twice, but as we're developing habits of how to get ourselves out of that state of feeling stressed out, it's best to try to establish habits that will be beneficial to you, not only in the moment, but also long term. So when you consider the kinds of distractions that will serve you as you are looking to get yourself out of that state of feeling stressed out, consider how what you're doing, the choices that you're making, will affect you both short term and long term. And remember, if long term, whatever this decision that you're making is going to add to your stress, then it's the wrong choice. It's probably not worth it. But of course, that's for you to decide. But I'm just here to be the word of caution. Something else to consider is whether the distraction is going to be enjoyable to you. Because if it is, that's just the bonus. That's the icing on the cake. If you can distract yourself with something that is enjoyable to you, then that's great. And if you could manage to make it enjoyable, productive, and something that will benefit you long term, that's like winning the lottery jackpot, because now you've been able to identify and implement distractions that sweep the board in terms of how it can benefit you. It can be productive, it can benefit you long term, and it's something that's enjoyable. So if you can identify one or two things or more that fit into all of those categories, consider yourself to be a jackpot winner in terms of the best ways of distracting yourself away from feeling stressed out. So how can you distract yourself away from being stressed out? What kind of things should you focus on? Well, as I said, it should be something that's enjoyable, if at all possible. Because think about it, it's a no-brainer. If it's something that you enjoy, it's going to be so much easier to get away from feeling stressed out. If it's something that can get you into that state of flow, and if you've ever been in that state of flow where you lose all track of time and the world beyond what you were focusing on almost doesn't exist, that's being in flow. And we've heard about this state of being in flow quite a bit over the last few years. If you can get yourself into that state of flow, then you're ahead of the game, because you can't be stressed out and be in flow at the same time. And oftentimes, people who get into that state of flow, they are enjoying what they're doing. So now you're kind of meeting two criteria all in one. Maybe for you, some good distractions would include spending time or interacting with maybe your friends or your family, your children or your pets, people or animals whose company you enjoy. That's key. I'm sure that you have in the past spent time with people who do not necessarily bring that much joy into your life, or maybe who even stress you out. So as you're planning for your distractions, your tools in your stress management toolbox, make sure that if you're engaging with others, those other individuals are people or animals, like I said, who bring you peace and joy and happiness, as opposed to those who stress you out even more. Because surrounding yourself with people who stress you out more defeats the purpose when we're talking about the kinds of distractions that help you to get out of that state of feeling stressed out. Sometimes focusing on problem solving is a good way to get yourself distracted away from that state of being stressed out, as long as the problem that you're tackling or the solution that you're working towards is removed far enough away from whatever stressed you out in that particular situation. So it can be something as simple as a crossword puzzle, or maybe you just like to do math for fun. Or there's another problem that's completely unrelated that needs your attention, and you don't mind spending the time to give it some thought, do some planning, do some strategy, brainstorming type of activities. So if you can engage in something like that, not only will you distract yourself from whatever stressed you out originally, but you will also be engaging in something that is productive, something that you can apply to a different problem. You can find a solution to a different problem. So that's a good option as well. As you've heard me say time and time again, exercise is a good cure for all kinds of ailments, and this is no different. Engaging in physical activity can be quite a great way to distract yourself from feeling stressed out and being in that state of stress, especially if the activity that you engage in, the exercise that you engage in, is either high intensity or requires a lot of attention. And oftentimes those two go together. If it's high intensity, chances are you really should be paying attention. Well, I will say you should be paying attention to your exercising at all times, no matter the intensity. But engaging in physical activity, engaging in an exercise can be an excellent way for you to get yourself out of that state of feeling stressed out and focused onto something else. And not only are you reducing stress at that point, you're also working towards better physical and emotional health. So it's a win-win-win in terms of using exercise as a way of distracting yourself away from feeling stressed out. As you can see, changing your state from feeling stressed out to feeling not so stressed out or not stressed out at all can be accomplished in many different ways. But distractions, especially distractions that are healthy, that benefit you long term, that are enjoyable and productive if possible, are the best choice. Regardless of what you choose in terms of what your best distractions are, the key, as with anything, and I keep telling you this same thing over and over again, it requires time and energy on your part. So maybe engaging in a particular distraction will be a winner from the start. Maybe you'll have to practice it a little bit before you get better at it. Or maybe you'll decide that that was not the best choice for you and you try something else. The key is that you keep at it, that you keep trying, and that you give it some time until you find just the right tools in your toolbox that will serve you the best. So I encourage you to engage in figuring out how you can distract yourself in a way that will benefit you away from feeling stressed out, so that you can deal with the stress at a different time, with a different mindset, with a refreshed, more energetic approach. That's the whole point of it. When we are in the midst of feeling stressed out, that may not always be the best time to tackle the root cause. Sometimes you have to, but if we're talking about looking at the root cause, it's great, or I will say it's better, to approach it with a fresh mind when you're not feeling stressed out, so that you can have better ideas and better solutions and better ways of changing whatever the root cause is of your stress. So I encourage you to investigate what kind of distractions you can use to reduce and better manage the stress in your life.